Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to return to a brewery who you've seen me review quite a few things from recently, and it'll be interesting to try something from the other end of the spectrum. So for this review we are going to go to Charlton in Massachusetts once again, and we're having a look at another beer from Treehouse Brewing Company. This time we're going for a stout. So this one is the Hold On to Sunshine, a coffee milk stout coming in at 7.6% ABV. So yeah, as I always say, when it comes to seeing what a brewery is all about, you really want something from the lighter end of the spectrum and something from the darker end of the spectrum. These guys, of course, are one of the iconic New England IPA craft breweries, so I'm really curious just to see how a stout turns out from them. I tried a porter from Trillium when my parents gave me those beers a few years back, and it turned out to be really quite nice as well, actually. It does tend to be that if a brewery's famous in one particular style, when they do try the other ones, they tend to do it pretty damn well, actually. But yeah, a huge thank you again in this video to Chris Contreras, the American dude living in Belgium who's been watching the channel. This guy has sent me some insane beers over the last kind of few months, so a huge thank you to him once again for making this review possible, and I sincerely hope that you guys watching have enjoyed the beers that he's given me to review. So yeah, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Treehouse Brewing Company before. No doubt I will add some more in the near future. There's still another 2 videos that you'll see sometime soon. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Treehouse Brewing Company then, on to my brewery notes once again. So as I've mentioned to you a good few times now, Treehouse Brewing are based in Charlton in Massachusetts, which is about halfway between Hartford in Connecticut to the southwest and Boston in Massachusetts up on the coast to the northeast. But this company was founded by 4 friends back in 2011. This is Dean Rowan, Nate Lanier, Damien Goudreau and Jonathan Weisbach, although from what I understand Jonathan Weisbach is not active in the company anymore. So Dean had a background as a plumber, Jonathan was a graphic designer, and Damien co-owns and runs a gym, while Nate was a construction manager. But the guys had homebrewed together from around 2008 in Nate's kitchen, and then they moved to a small 2.5 acre farm in Brimfield, which has a treehouse on the edge of it that would go on to inspire the name of the brewery. So the brewery continued to grow over the coming years, but they moved in 2013 to Corran Farm in Monson, which was owned by one of the founders' families, and it was there that they expanded their capacity from 150 to 900 US gallons per brew, or in real people metric measurements, 570 litres to 3,400 litres per brew. And they also opened up a tap room at this site as well. In 2016 though, the company bought land in Charlton, and they planned the construction of a 53,000 square foot or 5,000 square metre brewery, which went on to open in May of 2017, and it can produce 60,000 US barrels of beer per year, or 9.5 million litres. On the previous site at Monson is now home to their barrel aging programme, and over the last few years they've gradually added a larger outdoor space and added another mezzanine level inside the brewery as well. In 2019 they also purchased a farm in Woodstock in Connecticut, and they apparently plan to experiment there further with barrel aging, and also do some open fermentation as well. So maybe within the next few years you'll see a few sour beers coming out from Treehouse Brewing as well. So I think that will be really quite interesting. At this brewery it's Nate that is the head brewer, and according to Untappd these guys have produced around 300 different types of beer as of November 2019 when I'm filming this review for you. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Treehouse Brewing Company for the moment. As I said, one of the iconic American New England IPA breweries, along with the likes of Hill Farmstead, Alchemist, Trillium, and then you have these guys, and it's always cool to you know, be able to review some of these crazy American beers for you. I will be over in New England, I think August or September, I forget the exact date, but I will be over in New England next year in 2020, so we will do a little bit of a brewery tour. I'm sure we're going to go to Alchemist and Hill Farmstead and Treehouse and Trillium as well. We've got a few different, we're going to try and do the big 4, if you like, when we go up there, so you'll see my friend Tabor in a few videos actually, so hopefully you guys enjoy that when it comes out. But really cool to try something from the other end of the spectrum from Treehouse Brewing Company, and like I said, I hope that you guys really enjoy this little Treehouse mini-series that I've been able to do for you thanks to Chris. But yeah, that's all you need to know about the brewery for just now. If you want to learn more, check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and of course you can check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages to see all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on with this one then. So as you can see, the artwork on this is a little bit different from what you would find on a number of the Treehouse beers. Not different colours with the sort of Whomping Willow type treehouse thing on the background, but yeah, this is really quite nice actually. A little bit, don't know if you can describe that as modernist here, but yeah, this beer has a government warning on it. But I can't remember if the other ones did actually. I don't know why this one would have a government warning and the other ones wouldn't. But yeah, the Hold On to Sunshine. Hold On to Sunshine is a beer that asks you to look on the bright side in spite of your circumstances. No matter where you find yourself, it's important to remember that you have people on your side who will fight for you and care for you. This beer is brewed with chocolate, peanut butter, coffee, and tastes like a chocolate peanut butter cup. It drinks easily. Enjoy. So yeah, 7.6% this one. The website did have the malt base on it, so it's brewed with pale and chocolate malts, and they've got lactose, coffee, or cacao, however you pronounce that, and peanut butter. So yeah, it should be a really interesting beer. There's a 473ml can in metric, 1 US pint, but let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm really curious to see how this turns out. I've been a big fan of coffee stouts for a wee while actually. I really got into them because of Dugas Brewery here in Sweden. They had a partnership with Hunter and Sons in England, who were a coffee roasters in Bristol, and they did a few beers like Sidamo Dim 2, and I forget what the other one was called, but they were absolutely beautiful, beautiful beers, and it was a shame because Hunter and Sons is no longer in business anymore, so I really hope that Dugas Brewery continue on with their brewing these coffee stout beers, because they were absolutely beautiful. But coffee beans can add such a complexity to beer. It's all about the height that coffee is grown above sea level, because if you grow it above, I think it's 2,000 metres, you start to get all these kind of fruity flavours and stuff out of it. I don't even drink coffee normally, well, never drink coffee basically, but I love coffee beans in craft beers. I think that's a really nice little adjunct to put in the beer. But yeah, as you can see with this one, and as you'd expect from a stout, this one's poured a lovely dark sort of ebony rosewood colour. If you put the light through it, it definitely has a little bit of a kind of Coca-Cola colour edge to this one, but this one is pretty much black as night, to be honest with you. There's nothing, there's not much light coming through this beer at all. I think if it was a bit lighter, it would be quite hazy. It's difficult to tell with stouts sometimes just because of how dark they are, but yeah, nice looking beer. This, you could see there was a little bit of head when we poured this one out, but that's faded away just to be a very thin foamy there. It was a kind of medium beigey tan sort of thing. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but you can see a few little ones just creeping up the side of the glass towards that thin foamy layer. But overall it does look very, very nice, and pretty much what you would expect from a stout. When you open it up, you do get a good degree of sweetness out of this one. I'm curious to see how this one's going to compare to the likes of some of these big cakey stouts that you get from Omnipollo here in Sweden. So let's take a look at that aroma then and see how we go on. Nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this beer. Oh, that's nice. That is a nice smelling beer. Pardon me. Yeah, that really is. That's a very nice beer, this. See, it's Sunday morning, so this is my kind of just before lunchtime sort of beer, a nice breakfast stout. And I thought, it's a coffee stout. It's quite nice to have these. If you're reviewing these beers, it's always nice to do them in the morning. It gives you a little buzz for the rest of the day. But yeah, this one, the coffee in this one really comes across very nicely. You can tell with the coffee beans that they've used in here, it is a little bit. It's quite a light roast, I think, and it comes across as very kind of. It's got a little bit of floral character, but it's also a wee bit grassy too. And you can smell that just from the coffee beans in this. There's maybe a teeny bit of earthiness in there, but I think it's quite a grassy coffee that comes out of this one. It's got a nice smooth roasty note to it, and then it's got definitely a little bit of grassiness on top of that too. And that is, as I say, just the coffee beans. So with this beer too, You can smell a little bit of the chocolate coming out. I'd say we're talking maybe about a 60 or 70% cocoa chocolate. It does have a little bit of that darker chocolate element to it, but at the same time you can pick up some milky notes, but this beer does have lactose in it, so bear that in mind. At the front of the nose you do get a little bit of a kind of lactosey vanilla sort of thing. I always tend to smell vanilla a little bit when lactose is in beer, but yeah, that gives you the impression that there's a little bit of a milky chocolate in this beer as well. But if it's cacao, it will be, you know, it will be a bit of a darker chocolate, and it's probably just the lactose and stuff mixing together. You do get a nutty note out of this one. The peanut butter is pretty distinctive. You can't really describe it as anything else. Peanut butter, of course, is something Americans seem to enjoy. That I've never seen any country in Europe that really goes mad for it in the way that that Americans do. I mean, even in Scotland, we never had that as a child really. You know, the closest thing probably for us would be like toffee or something like that, you know, these little sweets. But yeah, you never really see peanut butter here in Sweden either. So my two homelands don't really see peanut butter. But yeah, a lovely smelling beer, this one. A good balance between sweet and roasty. It's got a nice kind of smooth bready quality to it as well, which is good. On the hoppy side of things, you can smell there's a wee bit of earthiness in there. There's a little bit of grassiness as well, but the hops aren't so present in this one, which is what you'd expect from a stout like this. This one is categorised on Untappd, by the way, as a sweet stout. It had a rating of like 4.25, which is pretty impressive actually. But it was, or was it 4.5? I can't remember. But this one was classified as a sweet stout, and when it's a sweet stout, you do expect the hops to take a little bit of a back seat. On the fruity side of things, there is a good little bit of a red fruit presence to this one. You know, it's got a little bit of a figgy note to it, a little bit of a blackcurranty, blackberry thing. You can pick out just a wee hint of a sort of raisiny sharpness to the beer as well. This is one of these beers, I think, where there is a good degree of complexity to one of the adjuncts, but it's not overly complex with the beer itself, and it's not too pungent an aroma either actually. But usually when you get beers like this, quite often they can turn out to be really complex in terms of their flavour, and this beer is really highly rated actually, so I'm very curious to see how it turns out. Take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of this one. As I say, not the most complex of beer aromas that you're going to call, so not the most pungent either. It's quite a light smelling beer this, but we'll have a taste of this one now and just see how we get on. This one is the Hold On to Sunshine, a coffee milk stout, coming in at 7.6% from Treehouse Brewing Company in Charlton in Massachusetts. A huge thank you once again to Chris Contreras for making this review possible. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Oh yeah, right, just going to say straight away, I can see exactly why this beer is so highly rated. It's really good. It really is pretty damn good. In some ways, the first kind of sweet stout that I would have encountered, the sort of sweet American style stout, it would be the it was from Brewdog. The name has gone right out of my head now, and it was one of my Riptide. That's it. It was the Brewdog Riptide. I was thinking surfing term. That was one of my favourite beers from Brewdog back in the day. This beer, it reminds me of that, but it just has a little coffee element to it. It really is quite like that. This is so in some ways this beer is a bit nostalgic for me. And I like how this beer is balanced. The coffee, you know, quite often when you put coffee into a stout, it can sort of overpower a lot of the other ingredients. This one really blends in very nicely. They've managed to up the other ingredients so the coffee doesn't overpower them. This is a beautiful beer actually. From what I gather, this is one that Nate dedicated to his wife, Lauren. Because I think it said in the description that they had on Untappd that it said at the end for Lauren, so it doesn't say that on this can. So yeah, but this is lovely actually. This is a very, very good beer. If you get the chance to try this, have a go at it. But let's try and break the flavour down a little bit more of this one then. Really does remind me of a Brewdog Riptide. It's got the same vibe about it, really. Just as I say, just not the coffee. But yeah, so with this beer then, you're going to feel a little bit of that nice kind of bread. There's a bit of breadiness to this one. That blankets the middle of your palate. The thing you're also going to notice is that the coffee really rolls out. The middle of your palate in this one dries out the further you go into the aftertaste. This is quite a big oily and sweet beer in the beginning, but then it just starts to dry out later on, and it's nice how it makes that transition actually. Yeah, so you've got a little bit of that bready quality there. On top of that, you start to feel you can feel that the peanut butter and the coffee notes are sort of infused into that. It's difficult with this beer because the whole middle of your palate feels as if everything is kind of infused together. There's not really an area. With quite a few of the flavours you're getting out of this beer, there's not really an area where they kind of congregate or aggregate together. You know, it really is interesting that. I would say that the chocolatey flavours, they come out a little bit more in the middle of the palate. And this beer, in terms of its chocolatiness, it is well balanced between being a darker, kind of high cocoa chocolate, but you also, further forward on the tongue, you do get a little bit of the lactosey quality in this beer. So the chocolatey notes, as I say, they're the things that really stick to the centre of your palate here. It's a little bit darker at the back, but then as you move further forward, it's a little bit more milky because of those lactosey notes that the beer has. If you go to the front corners of the palate and move in a little bit, it's also a little touch woody, and you're also getting the kind of nutty flavours. If you go to the very centre of your palate and move forward a bit, that's when you start to get the kind of peanut buttery flavours out of this beer too. It does almost taste as if there's a little bit of a kind of brown sugary element to this, but yeah, peanut butter is quite you know, it is almost, to me, peanut butter always had a very kind of brown sugary, nutty brown sugary type flavour to it. That was how I always took it. I never used to be a great fan of it, to be honest, but it's since I've got into the craft beers, it's something that has grown on me a little bit. But I don't really like sweet things on bread. I'm more like a cheese kind of salami type person. But the Americans will spread it on sandwiches, and I never liked the PB&J. I never liked sweet stuff on bread. It's just not how I roll. But the peanut butter flavours in this one, they come out towards the front of the palate, and they are quite nice. But the whole underneath of this beer, it's got a bready smoothness. The coffee's in there. There's a little bit of a kind of roasty. It's almost like a kind of carafa quality. I wouldn't be surprised if they've used a bit of German carafa malt in here, to be honest. But the coffee notes in this are very, very smooth, and the lactose, in fairness, it does give you that almost vanilla-y flavour further forward, but you can feel that the lactose and the smoothness from the lactose spreads all throughout the centre of your palate on this one. This is definitely a beer that's making me think about how everything fits together, and I like that about it. But you know, make no mistake, this is a beautiful, beautiful stout, this one. I certainly wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. So yeah, again, a huge thank you to Chris for sending me this one. I think this is a beer that would be very difficult to try unless you actually, you know, went and visited the brewery or lived over in America. Yeah, that is really, really good. As I say, the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, it dries out a little bit. And that's when you start to get the kind of coffee elements to this beer. And the coffee, again, it actually comes across as being a little bit... The coffee, I think, is sitting at the back of the palate where it's a bit more dry and a bit bitter. But the coffee, it comes across as a little bit more floral in the flavour than it did in the aroma. In the aroma it was a little bit more sort of grassy, I think, but definitely in the flavour it has a little bit more of a floral kind of character to it, but at the same time it's got a nice smooth roasty note to it. I do think it's a very light roast coffee, this one, but it's got a nice, there's a little touch of earthiness to it as well. So yeah, this beer, it's a bit dry at the back of the palate and then it's sweeter the further forward you come in. It does dry out a little bit more the further you go into the aftertaste as well. But you know, overall the malt base and the adjunct base, the centre of your palate in this, is really quite nice. On the hoppy side of things then, there is a little bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate there. As you come further forward, the earthiness does smooth out and spread quite far forward. You've got a nice little bit of floral aromaticity there on the front corners of the tongue, and then around the very front curve of the palate it's that little bit lighter and grassy actually, which is really quite nice. On the fruity side of things then, there's a few interesting things going on here. Yeah, so the fruity side of this beer then, as I always say, the fruity esters come out in that little oily bubble behind the front curve of your palate, and for me, the fruitiness in this one, it's got a nice little bit of a, it's quite sort of like plummy maybe, I think plummy and figgy. It's got a little bit of that slightly thicker feeling, plummy flavour to it, definitely some figgy notes, and then as you move further forward towards the tip of your tongue, it's got a little bit of a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing, but I think plums, figs, then a little bit of a blackcurranty, blackberry-ish type thing. But you know, overall it is a really nice tasting beer. This, I like how it all goes together. This is definitely one of these ones that's not overly punchy in any one regard. It's just all about how everything fits together. It's a beer like that, and it's really well done. As I say, it reminds me quite a lot of the, it's got the same vibe to it as Riptide from Brewdog did back in the day, and but it just has a little bit more of a kind of coffee, that kind of coffee element to it, which is nice. But yeah, a beautiful beer, this one, and I can see immediately why this is highly rated. I love beers like this that just make you think a little bit. It really is very complex, and that the level of complexity that this beer has, when you consider that this is only 7.6%, that really is quite impressive. This is more complex than some of the big, you know, 10, 11, 12% imperial stouts that you're going to come across. So thumbs up to Treehouse Brewing on this one. This could be the most interesting beer that I've tried from them yet, actually. It's definitely the most complex one. The other beers have, and don't get me wrong on that, all the IPAs and stuff that I've tried have been really damn good, but this is one, you know, I think this beer is just a little bit more special, to be honest with you, and it's, as I say, it's maybe just because that brewery has a reputation for New England IPAs, but, you know, I think this is the most interesting one that I've tried so far, actually. In terms of the mouthfeel of this beer, then, yeah, it's mid-bodied, the carbonation is very smooth, and this one, it's got a balance. I mean, I find this a slightly oily, but slightly wet and kind of slightly creamy stout as well. It's very well balanced in terms of its mouthfeel. One thing I did notice, and I talked with Tabor and Miles about this in the video we did in Iowa, and I found that American stouts, to me, they're a bit lighter in the mouthfeel than the ones we get over here in Europe. I think the European ones are a bit thicker, and I don't know if it's just, you know, generally America is a bit of a warmer country than Europe, at least Northern Europe, and the Scandinavian Imperial Stouts and the Scottish ones that I've had and Irish ones that I've had recently as well, they're very, very thick. I find the American mouthfeel in the stout is just a little bit lighter than what we would normally have in Europe. So to me, this one comes across as a sort of bottom end, top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied type mouthfeel generally. With the malt base and the adjuncts and things, it really is, it's very smooth, this beer. There's a good degree of sweetness to it, but that's well balanced by the kind of roasty qualities from the it really is well balanced from the roasty qualities that you get in the from the coffee and things like that as well. The hops are very light on this, you know. I think the bitterness overall with this beer, it's probably about 40 or maybe 50 at a push. This is a very nice, smooth, sweet stout, but I think there will be a fair degree of bitterness to this one just because of the presence of the coffee, and the fruitiness is quite nice and juicy and oily as well. But I have to say, this is a beer that really has made me think a little bit, and I love it when you find things like this. It really, one of the things that I enjoy most on the channel is trying styles of beer from a brewery. You know, it's always cool to try. The Treehouse Brewing are famous for their IPAs, and it really was cool to try one of their, you know, to try a good few of their IPAs actually. But to try something like this, which is a style they're not known for, to me that's a little bit, that's one of the things I always enjoy doing on the channel. I like trying very unusual things, if you like, and I think this is the most interesting beer that I've had from Treehouse so far. I do have one more stout to review from them. And there's one more IPA as well, which was Chris's favourite, that you'll see in about two videos time. from Treehouse, but you know, this I think is definitely the most interesting beer I've had from them so far. So again, a huge thank you to Chris for making this review possible. But a beautiful stout, this one. I've probably made this review a little bit longer than it needed to be, but this is a beer that definitely made me think, and it's been a very enjoyable review, I think. So yeah, thumbs up to Treehouse Brewing, and a huge thank you to Chris once again. If you get the chance to try this beer, have a go at it. If you like sweet stouts, you will enjoy this one. If you like coffee stouts, but on the sweeter side of the spectrum, you will enjoy this one. A beautiful beer, and it's been a privilege to review this one for you. So let's leave it at that then. This is the Hold On to Sunshine, a coffee milk stout at 7.6% from Treehouse Brewing Company in Charlton in Massachusetts. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Treehouse Brewing Company as well, and you will see 2 more videos soon, and hopefully some more in the fairly near future beyond that as well. Thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Hold On to Sunshine from Treehouse Brewing Company in Charlton in Massachusetts. Slàinte, skål, cheers.